Isiah Factor Uncensored starts now. And welcome to The Factor Uncensored. We want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. Now, we all realize there is a conflict raging on in the Middle East. But some people say, don't forget about the conflict happening right here on the streets of America when it comes to immigration. Some say families are being torn apart. We had a chance to speak with one man who has since lost his husband to that conflict. And joining us now here on The Factor Uncensored, we have with us Joseph Williams, and of course, his husband, Dr. Ezekiel Velez, has been taken into custody by immigration. So, Joseph, first of all, tell us what was going on, what was happening. You guys were traveling from South Texas to Houston, right? And what happened?
Right. We were actually moving. He was moving in with me. So I flew down there. Thought it was going to be a routine day of just moving, got there, helped pack up the rest of his stuff, got loaded into the U-Haul, lightheartedly joked on the way to the checkpoint of he's like, who knows, maybe I'll get detained. He was just joking, but Lord knows we did not think that was going to be the case. We get to the checkpoint, they ask if we're both citizens. He's like, oh, my husband is, but I am not. I have a work visa in place, but I'm also married. But because of the hold, I'm not able to, I don't have a visa as of right now, but I'm pending in status. And he's like,
but he had a visa previously.
Correct. Yes.
And what happened to that visa under the pause from the Trump administration?
Well, once he had the school visa, and then because he started working, so because he's a doctor, so he has to do residency to actually practice. So that's not technically a school. So his job offered him a work visa. So he applied for that, but because the Trump administration put that pause on the 39 countries, Venezuela being one of them, it just left it just there in purgatory. He was protected under Biden's previous immigration, and because Trump reversed all that, his work permit was no longer valid as of November. So he's been out of a job since November. He's just been waiting patiently for the work visa to get approved by the government. During that time frame, I drove down many times. We've been friends for a long time. We had a long entangled history. During that time frame, we became really close while he's unemployed. And I decided, I was like, you know what? We've had this complicated relationship for years. I'm like, I love you. You love me. Let's just get married. And he's like, seriously? And so he was here visiting, and I was like, yeah, let's get married. And so I got down on one knee and I proposed to him in front of. We were actually at a friend's birthday party, and I kind of took the spotlight away from that birthday party and proposed to him. And so he's like, oh my God, yes. Like, yes, I love you too. And so he's like, okay. I'm like, well, since you're not working, why don't you just move to Houston? I'm like, instead of just sitting down there by yourself, just come live with me and let's build a life together. He's like, yes, let's do it. And so that's why I went down there.
Which city was he in South Texas?
He's in West Laco.
Okay.
Texas, which is near McAllen.
Got it.
And so we got the. Oh, go ahead.
And take us back to the road trip from Weslaco to Houston, and your stop by at the border.
The Border Patrol.
Border Patrol.
So it's Border Patrol. Even though we're in the United States, there's a Border Patrol within the United States.
Yes, I've seen that.
It's kind of crazy, but I've been through it many times. So this time, like I said, we get there, they ask if we're citizens. He's like, going, oh, he is, but I'm not. So they ask for paperwork. He hands off the paperwork. They ask us to pull over. I'm like, okay, they're like, we just need to do some fingerprints, make sure you don't have a criminal record or anything. Like, seemed like routine. So we pull over, he gets out, he goes inside the facility. I wait. About 45 minutes go by. I'm just like, I have his two cats in the car with me. They don't have food. They don't have water. It's all in the back of the truck. We were planning on stopping at when we got gas, we're going to get the cats some food and water and try to get them to maybe, if they need to go to the bathroom, use the litter box. But I'm like going, God, I'm like, we've been stuck here for a long time. And I've seen so many cars pull up behind me and leave, pull up behind me and leave. Like there's been at least 50 cars by that point.
And were you at that point nervous? Like, what the hell is going on now?
I did,
We're married. He has applied for his work visa. Everything should be fine.
Everything should be fine. So I get out of the vehicle. I start walking over. They're talking to somebody again. Hello, sir. What are you doing? I'm like, oh, I just want to get some information. Like, I honestly don't know what's taking so long. I'm like, so many cars have come behind me and left. I'm going, I don't know what's going on with our situation. I don't know what's happening. It's like, I'll try to find out. It has somebody come talk to you. I'm like, okay. An hour later goes by. No one's come talk to me. I'm getting frustrated. And I also need to go to the bathroom. So I go back. I'm like, hey, I'm not trying to bother you guys. I'm like, I just want to get like an update of what's going on, like what's taking so long. At this point, they're like, oh, just return your back to your vehicle. Actually, can you move a little bit more forward? I'm like, more? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I'm kind of far from the facility by this point. So I'm just like, oh my God, 2 more hours go by. Finally, somebody comes out to me and talks, or actually, no, about 20 minutes go by. Somebody comes out and talks to me. And like, she's very nice, very friendly. She's like, hey, your husband's situation is very unique. Unfortunately, we don't have access to that. So we have to contact our lawyers from the government side to see do a deeper dive into the documents that he's provided, make sure they're valid and that everything's correct.
We're not done with this conversation about immigration just yet. We'll talk more about it in just a moment. Stay with us.
Did you just pay your insurance?
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We're going to get back to our conversation about immigration involving a doctor who was starting his life here in Houston until he was stopped by immigration. Let's get back to the conversation.
And I'm just crying in disbelief that this is happening. And then, I'm like, okay, is there anything else you need? And, he's like going, no. He goes, please call my friend Genesis. Please call my attorney. And he's like, I love you so much. I'm like, I love you too. And I gave him a hug and a kiss. And then they escorted him away. I got back in the vehicle.
You waited 5 hours only to have him taken away.
Yes.
And you still have no real answers because it doesn't quite make sense. You're married
and they never
couple.
Asked me.
He's becoming a doctor in his residency, medical doctor. And at this point, he's waiting on his second visa because the old visa expired. But it seems like you're feeling, okay, this will be quick and easy, but you're waiting 5 hours. Then you get the news that he's being detained.
Yeah, he's been detained. I was like, I figured something was wrong when we were there for so long. Once I saw the other cars come, park, they talked to them, they get out. Those people came back, got in their cars, and drove by me. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, what is taking so long with him? But yeah, it was, and they never once asked me for my ID. Never once asked me for any documentation if I was really a citizen. If he would have just said he was a citizen, we would have been here by 9 p.m. like we're supposed to, but I didn't get home until 3 a.m.
And so what do you do now? Do you just sit and wait?
Yeah,
What's
now
the
we're sitting and
status?
waiting. So
And how long has this been since he was detained?
This happened Monday afternoon. So when they finally detained him, it was right around 9 at night.
And now what do you do? Do you know what to do in a situation like this?
Well, I talked to his attorney because he had an attorney working for that work visa. He hired an attorney to try to fast track it because the Trump administration was putting all these things in place. And he's like, oh my God. He was scrambling. He's like going, I don't want to lose my job because of this pause, this ban that the Trump administration is doing. He's like, let me try to get this ahead of it before it affects me. But it unfortunately didn't happen. So he was affected. But right now, all we can do is wait. He's been there since Monday. He did get transported to the McAllen detention center. So that's where he's at right now. Unfortunately, he's not in the system. So there's nothing I can do until he gets uploaded into the system. So the lawyer said that once he's uploaded in the system, we can file for a bond. He said by that point, they actually might release him. Once they look more into the case, because like I said, the checkpoint, they just do like a quick little look into your background and stuff, and they just have to make an impulse decision. They're like, we either detain you or we let you go.
How frustrating is that to you, the entire system and what you're dealing with here in this country? This is something like,
absolutely
let's
crazy.
say 2 years ago, we wouldn't have imagined this.
No, this is crazy. This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, he's a human being and he's treated like a dog. Like it's ridiculous. I mean, and he's also a doctor. He's been helping save lives. Like he's not a criminal. He's not out there. He came here legally. He's done everything right. And
he's from Venezuela, for those who are wondering, right?
Yes. He's from Venezuela. And it's just heartbreaking to know that he's been here and he's done everything by the books. He doesn't have anything on his record, and he's just been so focused on helping save lives. That's his passion. He's been passionate about that when he was in Venezuela. He was a doctor there. But as you know, the government there is crazy and corrupt. And so he wanted to come here and he's like, oh my God, he goes, I almost feel like I'm in Venezuela all over again. Because it's just so crazy.
And of course, we know the law is the law, but one of the things the Trump administration said at the beginning of this campaign, they were going after the criminals here in this country. And now your husband, who happens to be a doctor who's serving rural areas in Texas, which we all need, rural doctors, because there's a shortage, but now he's behind bars.
Right. And he can't do anything. And the sad part is he's not the only one. So he's actually in a group of other physicians that are in jeopardy as well, that have lost their job because they can't work because of this pause that Trump administration has put on place. They can't. They're just stuck as well. They're like in purgatory. They're not legal, but they're not illegal. They're just pending, and it's very, very frustrating.
We'll have more Factor Uncensored in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
This program is being brought to you by Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer.
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. There's a new study out there that suggests Gen Zers, they're not equipped to dress properly. Wait, speaking of dressing properly, Starling, I need my jacket. We got to set a good example for these young people. So that study suggests that they're not dressing properly or professionally at work. We have an expert to give them some tips. And joining us now here on The Factor Uncensored, we have with us Vicky Salimi, who is with Monster. She is a career expert. Glad to have you here on The Factor Uncensored. As usual, Vicky, these Gen Zers are giving us problems. They're very difficult, in my opinion, to work with. Now, 40% of them, more than 40% of them are saying, look, the job depends if they require us to dress a certain way or have certain feelings about this. So tell us what you guys found in your study about Gen Zers and how they dress at work, or the requirements and how they respond to that.
Well, it's interesting, Isiah. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I want to just frame this by saying it's not necessarily a bad thing. So at Monster, we found that about 44% of workers said that if the dress code wasn't to their liking, that they would consider leaving their company. But typically,
wait, Vicky, we old heads. We know if there's a dress policy, we have to go with it. But now Gen Zers are saying absolutely not.
I know, and I used to work in HR, Isiah, so I was one of those people where we were figuring out like what is the dress policy, especially for summer, especially when you think about the Houston summers and how hot they get. So Again, though, it's not necessarily a bad thing because a company's dress code can typically reflect their culture. Mm-hmm. If it's a formal workplace, they may require suits or something that's more business attire rather than business casual. At Monster, our data showed that 63%. So the majority of workplaces have more of like a casual, like a business casual dress code. The issue becomes, of course, when it's like too casual, like do's and don'ts of like wearing sweatpants to work, like you just came back from the gym, or wearing just workout gear to meetings and different things.
And so when we talk about the Gen Zers, were you guys able to determine in your study what they were against, what they didn't want too much of? Was it one way or the other? Too much business, too much casual? Is there one that they preferred less of?
Well, I don't have that data off the top of my head, but I do remember that our data shows that, it's just overall, if it's an environment that has dress codes that they are not into, they're just either way too formal or just doesn't match their style, then they would not work, but wouldn't want to work there. But I should add that many people in this survey said that getting more dressed up is like 1 in 4, so that makes them feel more confident. Mm-hmm. So if you're Gen Z and you feel like, you know what, I really do want to get dressed up. I don't need to wear a suit every day, but I do want to feel more confident in business, just feeling more polished and professional. That's not a bad thing.
Could you limit yourself in your career at your job if you're not willing to be flexible, both management and the employee?
Absolutely. The employees need to be flexible. And I think what's interesting, though, with the pandemic, the pendulum swung so many times in terms of 100% working from home, then hybrid, now remote work, and then back to the office. So, workers, we have more opportunities than ever, but employers also, at the end of the day, need to decide what's best for business, but they also need to be concerned about retention and then recruiting, filling those roles if there's turnover. So it's important for workers to really, be flexible, and something may be temporary. Maybe you're asked to be in an office every day during busy season, and then after busy season in 2 months, then you go back to working remotely. So there's a give and take on both sides.
And for those employees or those who may apply, applicants who may apply for a job, should they be well aware of what they're getting into when it comes to dress before they take the job and then demand changes?
Well, I want to take it to the two-parter, Isiah. Number one is it's always a good idea to interview in person if you can, rather than on a video call. So if you can go to the office, you want to pick up on what are people wearing, get a sense for their attire and how it reflects to the company culture. And then also realize going into the job, yes, there will be most likely a dress code. And when I worked in recruiting, candidates usually didn't ask me for the dress code. But if, it sounds like it's based on our data at Monster that it is something that workers are more interested in now. So for them to ask HR and recruiting, by the way, just what is your dress code? And do you have different requirements if it's client facing, or, look at the company culture. If it's a really creative job, and let's say you're in graphic design and everyone has an arts and creative background, it may be more creative leaning than something that may be in banking or law or finance or something that may require more formal attire.
And we're not done with the factor just yet. There's some new technology in the game of baseball, and many people, they don't know quite how they feel about it. We'll talk about the robotic umpires when we come back.
This
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We all know technology is playing a crucial role in the advancement of society. And there's one piece of technology that many people are questioning now. That's on the baseball diamond. And we're talking about robotic umpires. Let's talk about it. And joining us now here on The Factor Uncensored, we have the man himself, our sports journalist extraordinaire, Jim Hicks. Jim, now the Major League Baseball industry has approved the use of an automated ball strike system, often called the robot umpire. Exactly, first of all, before we get into the conversation about the future of it and what it will impact, exactly what are we talking about?
Well, I mean, it's a system that's in place where they put cameras all around the stadium in strategic places, and the cameras are beamed in to make sure that the ball crosses the strike zone. And that's in a nutshell, because over years, there's been controversial calls. Hell, we just saw the World Baseball Championships ended in the last inning on a call that was controversial, whether it was a strike or not. So this is one of the measures that's just part of the new era of technology and advancements of it impacting in our society and in our sports. Absolutely.
And so do you think they took their time getting to this, Jim, because the way the public may respond, or they just wanted the technology right and advanced enough where it won't be questioned by the public?
Well, when they tried it, you go through trial and error with it, and each year, as I mentioned, 2019, 2022, and then last year twice in 2025. What they did was they added and got all of the intel that they needed, and I think the most important part of it is a strike zone is two things. Number one, it's been oval shaped for a lot of years by the human person, but by the rule book, it's supposed to be a rectangle. is the strike zone. And secondly, Isiah, Altuve comes to the plate is not supposed to have the same strike zone vertical wise as Aaron Judge when he comes to the plate. And
difference in height there.
Yes, so they will be factoring this into the new strike zone with the ABS system now. And that's very important. When you think about it, it does make sense.
Will we run into the question of, okay, now from the umpires, now you get rid of some of our jobs and we are being pushed out of baseball to some extent, not all positions, but to some extent. And our ability, our importance in the game is being diminished by these machines, by this technology.
Well, the technology is going to take emotion out of the game, for one. And there are some umpires that already have antagonized by some of the batters. The computer element now, or the ABS system now, takes that out of it. And also, and that's really a part of it. Don't get it twisted. These umpires are human beings. And certain umpires, certain players may rub umpires the wrong way. It takes a lot of the argument and the debating out of it. It takes that element out of it. Remember, they're trying to find ways to speed up the game.
And still to come here on The Factor Uncensored, something that may be surprising to many of you that everyone has, but some actually don't. We'll explain next on The Factor. It's a rare condition that many people are born with, and some of us, we've simply never heard of it, but it's shocking as hell. Individuals who are born without an anus. So how do they survive? We talked to a doctor about it.
I was born without an anus. And so in that, they had to create one, but it doesn't function the way God created it. So it leads to incontinence. So from all of my life, I've dealt with trauma of being found out. It's very traumatic. People would never know because I smile, I show up, I still do what I need to do. But when I go home, I'm like, whew, another victory, another day, I made it through.
And joining us now here on The Factor Uncensored to talk about this rare occurrence where it happens to 1 in 5,000 births. And it seems so unusual. I've never heard of it, but it's not super rare. 1 in 5,000 people. So Dr. Wah, explain this to me. How does this happen to an individual when where they are born without an anus?
Well, to begin with, the correct terminology or the name of it is anorectal malformation, or it depends on the individual, might identify it with the acronyms of ARM or ARM. The issue is that this is a congenital problem that a person just isn't born with an actual bowel, the descending colon end, the anus. So one of the areas that is problematic with this is because you don't have a sphincter, so therefore it is an opening. It's basically created, and the issues that occur behind it are multiple, but it's something that's manageable. But still, this is something that does happen more for males than females.
And so when you're born, there's just no area, no hole there, and the doctors have to go in and create one.
Correct. What you're dealing with is an opening. See, there's this thing called the colon, and the colon has a piece of, name, whether it's descending or sigmoid. But the point is that all of that is a tract like plumbing that all the way goes down to the anus. The anus has an anal sphincter. That's the opening. So at that particular area, that's not there. It's completely closed. So with that closure, it prevents an individual from having an actual functional bowel movement.
And so is there let's say worst case scenario, you are born in an area where you don't have the medical treatment or the healthcare readily available like we do here in America. What do you do then? Can you even survive that way? What happens with bowel movement if you have no hole there?
So if there is no way to actually create an opening to allow bowel to escape, then again, it all depends on where we're talking. There is something called a colostomy that will allow the evacuation of bowel, which is basically waste from the body after you eat. But if you have no way to remove waste, you will get septic, and unfortunately, the end is the end. And just to keep in mind that the most important part about the elimination, we have a lot of bacteria and bad stuff that's in our GI tract. One particular organism called E. coli. That's not the easiest, but it's not the worst. But it's bad enough to where it can cause you sepsis.
Okay, and so you said it is manageable once you get that surgery after you're born, as a child, an infant, a baby. Once you get that surgery, it's manageable, but is that something that you must deal with your entire life? It never becomes just routine like the average person.
Well, that's the whole point of the routine. The routine is a bowel type management program where, unfortunately, there may be leakage, but there are levels of incontinence that can occur. When the individual was talking about the smell and things of that nature, it is bowel movement. But by the same token, the bigger piece is the psychological. Well, how do you see yourself going through walking around in a social setting? The intimacy is also another issue that people can come in contact with. That's a stressor. The mere fact of, in my field, we work with pelvic floor exercises to try to help with control, but you still have, unfortunately, no functioning anal sphincter that really controls and keeps any material that happens to be fecal material to come out and actually go into anything. But the pelvic exercises can reduce the flow.
Still to come here on The Factor Uncensored, we have a spirited debate about books in the school library. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We all know around the country there's been a movement by some to ban certain books out of school libraries. And Houston is no exception. We had a conservative to make a stop in town. Let's take a look.
Before you purchase new books, you need to get rid of the 500 filthy books that you have. I'm going to read one. If there's children in the audience, they need to leave.
Ma'am, point of order, this is a public hearing.
I understand that.
You will not be allowed to read things that are not appropriate in public.
Oh, not appropriate? Then why are they in your schools?
Ma'am,
this book
you're missing your time.
is in DeBakey, Fur, and Heights High School. His was enormous.
Absolutely not, ma'am. You are now out of order. This is your first warning. One more word and you will be removed.
She wrapped her hand around his.
Absolutely not. This is your second warning. Thank you, miss.
Into the small slit.
Officer, please.
If you don't like it, remove it so the children don't have access to it.
Now, we invited that conservative speaker to The Factor to sit down with the author of the book she made the comments about to see if they could talk it out. Let's get to it. Our guests are here on The Factor Uncensored. We have with us Bonnie Wallace, who is in Plano, Texas, and she is a conservative activist. And of course, you remember Bonnie's appearance at the Houston Independent School District made a few people clutch their pearls, but she was repeating what she said was in a book. Also joining us, author George M. Johnson. He is in Los Angeles, and he is considered one of the most banned authors. All right, we're getting off to a good start, George. You're one of the most banned authors in the country with your book, All Boys Aren't Blue. So first of all, Bonnie, why was it so important that you go in front of the Houston Independent School Board's district and read the book and read some of what was written in the book, which included the word?
Yes, mostly because I get invited by parents in the area. All over Texas, I've been to 163 school boards. So I get invited because parents have been trying to get the attention of the school boards. And the only real way to do that is to read some of the content because people don't understand what's in the books. You know, we've got books about sex with animals, sex with dead bodies, sex with Jesus, QR codes that take kids to sex videos and sex shops. So there's a lot of content that is perfectly fine for adults, but not so much for children.
And when the authors of those books say, well, this is art, and it's a way to explain certain things to children, young people, young teens, young adults out there, what would you say to those authors who say, this is my interpretation of art, and this is how kids will learn?
Right. So if parents want to buy that for their children, they can certainly go out and do so. There's actually not been one book banned in all of America because nobody can ban a book. I can buy All Boys Are Blue. I have it right here, but I can go buy it today and have it delivered tomorrow anywhere in the United States. And so the books are not banned, but are they appropriate for children? And I say that many of them are not.
All right, George, let's hear from you. When she says your book is not banned, how would you describe what happened to your book in the public?
Yeah, I always find it funny, right? Because it's such an interesting standpoint when a person says, in one breath, I can't afford gas, I can't afford groceries, but you can afford this book if you needed it. No, that's why the book is made available for free. For those who can't afford gas, can't afford groceries, they should still have access points to be able to read these books. And that's what libraries do. Libraries are public services that make books that are unattainable specifically for poorer communities, which oftentimes happen to be Black communities, brown communities, LGBTQ communities. It makes those works accessible to the masses. And so when people are saying, oh, it's not really banned, it's a lie. Because for some children, the removal of a book from a library means they don't have the means to have access to those books. That's a beautiful thing that she can afford to buy any book she wants. That's not the reality of this country. And we know it's not the reality of this country because you can look at the economics of this country. You can look at gas prices too high because they'll also talk about kitchen table topics where our gas is too high. We can't afford food. We can't afford groceries. And then on the other side of their mouth say, but you can afford books. That those two things can't be congruent, right? And so books belong in libraries. All books belong in libraries, and people should have access to books in libraries.
The conversation isn't over just yet. We'll pick it up after the break. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. What do you get when you sit down a conservative speaker with the author of an LGBTQ plus book? You get this conversation. Let's roll it.
Bonnie, you quoted some words out of a book that was on the shelf at HISD. Do you recall what you said? And of course, we'll bleep it here, but you can say it here.
Yes, am I allowed to say it?
Yeah.
The book is called A Court of Silver Flames, and it, like All Boys Aren't Blue, was designated as young adult, which young adult by the American Library Association definition means for ages 12 and up. So even the name I dispute. If you go on the American Library Association, yes, George, if you go on the American Library Association's website, they describe young adult as for ages 12 and up.
I'm the author of my book. You can't tell me.
I can't hear you.
I'm the author.
Hey, George, let me get from her, George, really quick, what she finds offensive in some of the book.
Yeah, I just don't do
I'll give you a chance to respond, but go ahead, Bonnie.
I will email you the page.
You don't have to, honey. I write
American
books.
Library Association. I can't hear you very well, George. I apologize.
I'm not surprised.
Over you. So what the book said was on page 288, it says his was enormous, hard and beautiful and absolutely enormous. He wanted him grabbing her head and her mouth as hard as he wished. And those words, and listen, the book is over 900 pages, and that's just one sentence from, one page. The entire book is this very erotic, sexually explicit content. And I find that book in many, many schools. I do not go after books like All Boys Aren't Blue. I disagree with much of the content in it, but people always say that I'm going against gay people or the LGBT lifestyle. I'm not. I think all sexually explicit content does not belong accessible to minors. That's my stance.
All right, George, when she says it doesn't matter if you're LGBTQ plus, it's sexual content shouldn't be available to minors, to young people. Your response to that?
Yeah, I find it very interesting. I'm also a part of it. Again, you can't really talk to me about like age range groups and genres when this is my job. But in reality, I'm actually a part of a federal lawsuit in Florida where it's a Trump appointed judge who when the school, the parents were much like Bonnie bringing up these statements, the judge asked them, so would A Time to Kill, the book A Time to Kill be, you would want that removed from school systems? This is a Trump-appointed judge because it has that rape scene in it. And you could tell in that moment that A Time to Kill, even though this is a conservative judge, was probably the book that made him want to become a lawyer, that made him want to become a judge. And so I go back to say, when we are writing these books, we are writing about the realities that are happening. In my book, I do talk about the first time I had sex. I was 20 years old, but I also talk about a time when I was sexually assaulted when I was 13. Taking these books out of the school will not stop sexual assaults happening to minors. But guess what? These books help them navigate when these things happen to them and when these things happen to their friends. Another thing that no one likes to talk about is the amount of sexual assaults that happen primarily to women on college campuses. That's a direct result of you are not allowing books that teach sex or consent to young adults before we place them in dormitories together. Then they'll tell you, well, we want to be able to teach this at home. How could you teach this at home if you also want to remove the words with the book penis in it? Then I doubt that you're willing to even say that word to your child at home to teach them about sex education. So we can't have it both ways, right? There has to be some type of way that we are teaching young adults about puberty, about the changes that are happening to their body, and about the realities that are happening around them. And through books, it is helping them to learn who they are, learn who the people around them are, and to help them navigate becoming better adults. Because most 12-year-olds are in high school.
Let me ask Bonnie this. Is there an age group you think George's book is appropriate for, or do you think it should not be at any school in any school library?
Well, my premise is that content that can permanently change the way of thinking of a child does not belong in school libraries paid for with tax dollars. And so I will stick to that. It does not belong in children's sections of public libraries or in school libraries. And I have found George's book, All Boys Aren't Blue, in even elementary schools in Texas.
She hasn't.
I know, it's outrageous. I agree with that. I'll get it from you. I'll report it and send it to the elementary schools that have it.
Yeah, she hasn't.
And so the lines are being blurred in the appropriateness of content. As I said, I don't mind George writing his book. He certainly has to. That's what the American dream is all about. Putting it down, writing it, that's fantastic. And he's written other books as well. And I'm proud of him. As an American, that's fantastic. There's my premise is just that there's content that does not belong accessible to minors. That is my story.
And we'll be back with more Factor after this. Stay with us.
If you're injured here,
Welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Did you know over 15 million Americans are on some form of weight loss drug? The popular ones, like we know, Ozempic and Wegovy. But now there is a side effect that's surprising many, leaving some individuals not wanting to be in a relationship. Let's get to Dr. Ali.
Dr. Ali, people probably will be shocked to learn this information you're about to deliver to them tonight when it comes to these weight loss drugs. Now, they're not originally intended for weight loss. They're intended for people with diabetes, but people use them for weight loss. But now we're hearing that it could affect you in different ways, a very serious way that some people may not be ready for, right?
That's correct, Isiah. What we're seeing with this ongoing research is there are some side effects that we're realizing and are coming to the forefront with folks that now have been on Ozempic and Ozempic-like medications. And those side effects that we're specifically seeing are sexual changes, meaning either your sex drive is decreased or alternatively your sex drive is increased. We're actually seeing a combination of both, and that's very interesting. And the reason why it is because the Ozempics and all these weight loss medications work on glucagon, and these real receptors are all over, but mainly in your brain as well. And those are responsible for suppressing your appetite, but also they are responsible for your mood and your sexual drive as well. And so those dopamine or those reward pathways are affected when you're taking these medications, which can cause a decrease in your sexual function and in your sex drive itself. And so we're noticing folks who have a less desire to have sex and a less desire to continue on with it, and they are experiencing what we call like erectile dysfunction as well.
And of course, I've heard someone also saying, and correct me if I'm wrong with this, they are less interested in relationships, right?
That's correct, Isiah.
Am I correct in saying that?
Correct. Yeah, that is correct. And the reason why is because that whole reward pathway, that's the dopamine pathway, is affected by that in the brain. And so your interest in that, or your interest in desiring sex and pursuing sex, is all affected. And so you may be seeing a decrease in that. The other thing that we've commonly see is what we call the Ozempic nausea, which is the abdominal discomfort, the GI, the nausea that's associated with folks that take the Ozempic and like medications. And
then, of course, really quick, Dr. Ali, we don't want to just say it's Ozempic because there's various forms of that. There's a generic form. And we haven't heard back from Ozempic commenting on this yet, but it could be any drug like that.
That's correct. Yeah, we're talking specifically about the GLPs or glucagon-like peptides, and Wegovy is one of them, Ozempic, as we've talked about. And yes, now there are many generics as well, and even some of them that are compounded medications that you may be getting from those compounded pharmacies also have very similar medications. As a whole, we're talking about medications that affect the GLP receptors or glucagon-like peptide receptors that is then reducing your sexual drive, your appetite, as we know, because that's one of the ways that it works so well for weight loss. And so saying all that, we have seen also folks that have had an increase in their sexual desires and libido and decrease in their erectile dysfunction. And the reason for that is because, Isiah, we're seeing a better control of diabetes, their blood sugars are better maintained, and they're losing the weight. So they feel good about themselves. And so now they're wanting to be more proactive.
That'll do it for The Factor Uncensored. Have a great one.